My mother-in-law tried to name my baby without my permission. I never imagined that one of the biggest arguments after giving birth wouldn't be about diapers, sleepless nights, or feeding schedules. It would be about my own baby's name. When I was pregnant, my husband and I spent months making lists. We'd write down names we liked, cross them out, argue a little, laugh a lot, and slowly narrow everything down. It wasn't just picking something that sounded nice. It felt like choosing the first gift we'd ever give our child. My mother-in-law, however, seemed to think she had a vote. At first, it was harmless. Every family dinner, she'd casually throw out another suggestion. What about Elizabeth? No, then maybe Catherine. About naming the baby after me. It would be such an honor. I'd smile politely and tell her we appreciated the ideas but wanted to keep our final choice private until the birth. Apparently, she heard. Please campaign harder. The suggestions turned into speeches. She brought up family traditions, old relatives I'd never met, and even claimed certain names brought good luck. One afternoon, she handed me a handwritten list with 27 names highlighted in yellow. 27. Meanwhile, my husband and I had quietly settled on a completely different name that meant something special to us. We agreed not to tell anyone because we wanted the announcement to be a surprise. Looking back, keeping it secret may have been the smartest thing we did. As my due date got closer, my mother-in-law became strangely confident. She started saying things like, "When little Charlotte arrives," except Charlotte wasn't our choice at all. Friends would look confused. I'd gently correct her. She'd wave her hand and say, "Oh, she'll come around." I didn't realize she meant me. Then came delivery day. Everything happened so fast that nomming the baby was the last thing on my mind. After hours in labor, I was exhausted, emotional, and mostly focused on the tiny human sleeping in the bassinet beside me. Family members rotated through the hospital room with flowers, balloons, and enough stuffed animals to fill a toy store. My mother-in-law walked in carrying a gift bag and the biggest smile I'd ever seen. She looked at the baby and announced, "Welcome to the family, Charlotte." The room went silent. I politely corrected her. She laughed. Dear, that's what everyone's calling her. I thought she was joking until my sister quietly showed me her phone. My mother-in-law had already posted on social media a full announcement, complete with a baby photo she'd taken without asking, captions about becoming a grandmother, and a giant welcome message using the wrong name. Hundreds of people had already liked it. Comments poured in saying things like, "Charlotte is beautiful," and "Love the family name." Except our daughter wasn't named Charlotte. I stared at the screen wondering if exhaustion was making me hallucinate. My husband looked equally stunned. He asked his mother why she posted that. She shrugged like it was obvious. Well, someone had to announce it. Then she added the sentence that nearly made me drop my water bottle. I figured once everyone got used to the name, you two wouldn't change it. She genuinely believed public pressure would force us into accepting her decision. For a second, nobody spoke. The nurse walked in, sensed the awkward energy instantly, checked a monitor, and quietly walked back out like she wanted absolutely no part of whatever family drama she had interrupted. My husband finally said, "Mom, we already chose a name." She crossed her arms, and I chose a better one. Confidence was almost impressive. Over the next 20 minutes, she argued every possible angle. Our name was too modern. Her name was timeless. Choice was hard to pronounce. Her choice sounded elegant. One point she even claimed she'd had a dream that proved she was right. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a hospital bed wondering why I had to defend my own child's identity less than 24 hours after giving birth. I expected my husband to end the conversation quickly. Instead, he surprised me in the best way. He walked over, picked up the hospital paperwork, and placed it directly on the tray in front of me. Then he said, "The only two signatures that matter are ours." You could practically hear the air leave the room. My mother-in-law looked genuinely offended. She insisted grandparents should have input because they're part of the family too. I agreed they were important. Input, sure. Authority, absolutely not. The conversation ended with her storming out, muttering that no one respected traditions anymore. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages from distant relatives congratulating me on baby Charlotte. Some even sent personalized blankets they'd rushed to order overnight. That's when I realized my mother-in-law hadn't just made one social media post. She'd been privately messaging relatives across the country introducing the baby under the name she preferred. She had built an entire alternate reality in less than 12 hours. And somehow, I was the one expected to fix the confusion. So I made coffee, took a deep breath, and prepared to untangle a mess I never created. I figured clearing things up would take 5 minutes, one simple post, one polite correction. Problem solved. I underestimated just how committed my mother-in-law was to her own version of events. That afternoon, my husband and I shared our official baby announcement. We posted the photo we actually wanted to use, thanked everyone for their kind wishes, and proudly introduced our daughter with the name we had chosen together. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Wait, I thought her name was Charlotte. Did you change it? Now I'm confused. Most people were just trying to understand what happened, but then my mother-in-law left a comment that made my jaw drop. She wrote, "Some people make emotional decisions after birth. I'm sure they'll reconsider." She didn't mention me by name, but everyone knew exactly who she meant. I stared at my phone, wondering if I should respond publicly or ignore it. Before I could decide, my husband picked up his own phone and simply replied, "No reconsideration needed. This is our daughter's permanent name." Calm. Crystal clear. His mother deleted her comment an hour later, but the screenshots had already made the rounds through the family group chat. That evening, we came home from the hospital expecting peace and quiet. Instead, we found a surprise on our front porch. There was a giant gift basket wrapped in pink ribbon with a custom wooden plaque attached to the front. Engraved across the top in elegant cursive was the wrong name. Even the teddy bear inside had a tiny embroidered sweater with Charlotte stitched across it. I couldn't help laughing, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was getting upset over a teddy bear that apparently belonged to a child who didn't exist. My husband sighed and said, "She really ordered this before the baby was even born." Receipt tucked inside confirmed it had been purchased weeks earlier. She hadn't just hoped we'd choose her favorite name. She had planned as though the decision had already been made. Over the next several days, more packages arrived. A personalized blanket, a framed birth announcement, a silver keepsake box. Every single item featured the same incorrect name. Friends started joking that our daughter had an imaginary twin receiving all the gifts. I appreciated the humor, but underneath it all was a growing frustration. It felt less like innocent excitement and more like someone refusing to accept a boundary. Then came the family barbecue. We debated skipping it entirely, but eventually decided showing up confidently would send a stronger message than hiding. As soon as we arrived, relatives gathered around to meet the baby. Most greeted us warmly and immediately used her real name after hearing it. My mother-in-law did the exact opposite. She held out her arms and loudly announced, "Come to Grandma, Charlotte." Conversations around the yard stopped. A few people exchanged awkward glances. My husband corrected her. She smiled sweetly and repeated the wrong name anyway. It happened again and again. By the fourth time, even one of her own sisters leaned over and whispered, "You know that's not the baby's name, right?" Without missing a beat, my mother-in-law replied, "It should be." That single sentence changed the atmosphere completely. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Later in the afternoon, one of the younger cousins accidentally called the baby by the wrong name because that's all they had heard from Grandma. I gently corrected them, and the child apologized immediately. Ironically, the 8-year-old accepted the correction faster than the adult in the family. On the drive home, my husband and I talked for nearly an hour. Neither of us wanted endless conflict, but we also didn't want our daughter growing up around someone who ignored basic parental decisions whenever she disagreed. So we made a simple rule. Anyone who refused to use our child's actual name wouldn't get to hold her. No shouting, no dramatic speeches, just a clear boundary. The next weekend, my mother-in-law visited again. She walked in smiling, reached for the baby, and cheerfully used the wrong name one more time. My husband gently stepped between them. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said. "Her name is the one we announced. If you can't use it, you're not holding her today." She looked shocked. "You're serious?" "For us, yes." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then she accused us of being disrespectful, claimed we were punishing her over one little word, and insisted everyone else was overreacting. But the remarkable part was that no one in the room rushed to defend her. My father-in-law quietly looked down at his coffee. My sister smiled awkwardly. Even my husband's uncle eventually muttered, "It's their kid." The first time since this whole saga began, my mother-in-law realized she wasn't winning over the audience. She left earlier than planned, taking her untouched casserole with her. As the front door closed behind her, the house became unusually peaceful. I looked at my husband, then at our sleeping daughter, and finally allowed myself to believe that maybe the numbing battle was over. Of course, in families like ours, peace has a funny way of arriving right before the next surprise. I wish I could tell you that setting boundaries fixed everything. It didn't. For a few weeks, my mother-in-law stopped saying the wrong name in front of us. I thought maybe she had finally accepted reality. Then my cousin called me after attending a family lunch I couldn't make. She asked, "So, does your daughter have two names now?" I immediately knew where this was going. Apparently, whenever my husband and I weren't around, my mother-in-law introduced the baby using the name she had chosen. She told extended relatives that we were still deciding, and that her preferred name was the one everyone should use until we came to our senses. She wasn't confused. She was rewriting the story. Some relatives believed her. Others didn't know what to think. A few quietly admitted they only used the wrong name because they assumed that was what the family wanted. I stopped correcting everyone, not because I agreed, but because it became exhausting. Every phone call turned into an explanation. Every holiday gathering started with the same awkward conversation. Every personalized card or gift seemed to arrive addressed to a child who didn't exist. The hardest part wasn't even the name. It was realizing that my mother-in-law cared more about being right than respecting us as parents. My husband confronted her privately one afternoon. He came home unusually quiet. I asked how it went. He just sat at the kitchen table for a minute before answering. "She said we stole her chance to leave a legacy." That sentence stayed with me, not because I understood it, but because it explained so much. In her mind, this had never been about our daughter. It had been about control. Months passed. The arguments became less frequent but never disappeared. Whenever someone new joined the family, a neighbor, a distant relative, an old friend, there was always a chance they'd hear the wrong name first. Then they'd look confused when we corrected them. Sometimes they apologized. Sometimes they'd nervously laugh. A few even said, "Well, your mother-in-law insists the other name is the real one." Eventually, we stopped hosting large gatherings altogether. Birthdays became smaller. Holidays became quieter. Invitations slowly dried up because people got tired of the tension. No dramatic fight ended the conflict. No heartfelt apology arrived. No magical conversation healed years of resentment. Instead, the family slowly split into invisible sides. Some respected our decisions. Some stayed neutral. Some continued enabling her because that's just how she is. That phrase became the one I disliked the most. Because "that's just how she is" somehow always meant someone else had to tolerate behavior they never asked for. Our daughter is older now. She knows her own name. She says it proudly whenever someone asks. But every now and then, usually at a crowded family event, my mother-in-law still slips in the other name with a smile that dares anyone to challenge her. Most people ignore it. Some don't even notice. I notice. My husband notices. And our daughter notices too. She once tugged on my sleeve afterward and quietly asked, "Why does Grandma call me that?" I searched for the perfect explanation and couldn't find one. All I could honestly say was, "Sometimes grown-ups refuse to admit they're wrong." She nodded, accepted the answer more gracefully than any adult in the room ever had, and ran off to play. The situation never truly resolved. We didn't cut contact completely, but we also never rebuilt the trust that had been broken during those first days after our daughter was born. People often expect family conflicts to end with hugs, forgiveness, and a happy photo around the dinner table. Real life isn't always like that. Sometimes the biggest change isn't that the other person learns their lesson. It's that you learn to stop expecting them to. And even years later, every time I hear someone accidentally use the wrong name, I'm reminded that one decision made without my permission created a crack in our family that never fully closed.